Cristo Rey Jesuit High School is honoured today by the presence of Dr. Freeman Hrabowski III, the President of the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. A child leader in the civil rights movement, Dr. Hrabowski earned his bachelor's degree in mathematics with highest honours from the Hampton Institute at the age of 19. He earned his PhD in higher education administration from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. An inspiring visionary, Dr. Hrabowski is an acclaimed author, a presidential advisor, and an influential intellectual. Named one of the top 10 college presidents by the New York Times, Dr. Hrabowski is also a longtime friend of Cristo Rey Jesuit High School. Please offer a warm welcome to the 2011 commencement speaker, Dr. Freeman Hrabowski.
Good morning. 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, before any of you were born, as I speak, Reverend Swope and Mr. Malone, the board, faculty, and others, Maya Angelou stood before the nation and said these words: "Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men, take this dream into the palms of your hands. Mold it into the image of your most private self. Sculpt it into the shape of your most public need. Here on the pulse of this new day, you may have the grace to look up and out and into your sister's eyes and into your brother's face and say simply, very simply, with hope, good morning." Good morning again, Cristo Rey. Good morning to the class of 2011. I want you to know I had some help in preparing my speech today, graduates. Where's Andre? Andre Moutier, stand up. He's one of my UMBC interns. Give Andre a hand. I'm very proud of him. Very proud of him. Andre gave me advice, and my other interns, Brian and Torres, but Andre's advice was especially significant because he said, "Doc, speak from the heart." They would want to know, how'd you get to be president of UMBC? They'd want to know something about your story. They'd want to know that you know that we are special. And you are indeed. You are here today as this first class representing a dream fulfilled. When leaders in our city wanted a fine school of this type for young people from this area, they came together with educators, and here you sit today, the first class. I want you to give the teachers, the board, and your families a big round of applause for caring about you. My message today is very, very simple. Number one, be inspired by your own story. Young people, it could never have occurred to me as a little fat boy in Birmingham, loving blueberry pie and math, that one day I would be president of a predominantly white university, standing in a place like this, speaking to brilliant young children looking like you. I had the privilege at age 12 of leading a group of children in a demonstration asking that we have a chance to get the kind of education you have received here at Cristo Rey. Very important that children have a great education. The Cristo Rey idea. And I remember after being in jail for a week, Dr. King and all of our parents were outside of that jailhouse, and he said this to the children inside the jail: "What you do this day will have an impact on children yet unborn. Young people, you are those children who benefit from what others did before you came along. You stand on their shoulders. I loved what Jonathan said when he talked about the idea of believe and dream and working. You see, your dreams and your values will shape who you are not only today, but who you will be in the future. How many of you know the name Zora Neale Hurston? You know that name? In her book, Their Eyes Were Watching God, right? Goosebumps, right? Goosebumps, goosebumps. I love it. Teachers, you did a good job. I see this, I see this. Ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing until the watcher turns his head away in resignation, his dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of men, and I would say of women. She was talking about two groups of people, people like you. You represent your family's dreams becoming fulfilled. And then she was talking about people whose dreams are forever, in the words of Langston Hughes, deferred. It occurs to me that the purpose of Cristo Rey, the purpose of an education, is to help young people to dream about the possibilities. That's what you've been doing. And then to give you the skills and the values you need to reach the dreams. And so be inspired by your story. Ask your mama and your dad and your grandmama, people, what did they do to help you sit here today? My second message is for you to savor this moment. You know, I tell this story all the time about blueberry pie. When I was a little kid, my mama was trying to get me to stop eating so much, but my grandmama thought I needed to be fatter, to have some padding on me, she said. And so she would make 2 blueberry pies, one for the family and one for Freeman. And she put my name on my pie. And my mama would be so upset with her mother for doing this. But she'd cut me, my grandmother, a big piece of pie, and I would sit there doing my math problems and eating my pie, and there'd be blueberry pie all over my face. And my mother would be shaking her head like this, and my grandmother would be saying, you just enjoy yourself, baby. This is your time. You enjoy yourself. Now, I can still taste that blueberry pie 45 years later. That's savoring the moment. Savor this moment. I want you to think about the fact that behind you sit all your family members who believe in you, who love you unconditionally. Your teachers who have pushed you and loved you and cared about you. When you go through the tough times, and you will, because life, your families will tell you, will have moments of hardship. When you go through those tough times, remember this moment of love. And then think about what you have done to get to this point. The hard work, the determination, the continuing to push, to listening to the advice. Those same qualities, those same values will make all the difference in the world. You know, you've only just begun, and it's such a grand time to be beginning. Samuel Beckett, an Irish novelist who wrote in French, had a character in a book called Malloy, and Malloy studied the dancing of bees. When bees are dancing, they're actually communicating with each other. And he said this about that phenomenon, about that dancing of the bees. He said, here is something I could study all my life and never understand. And yet he said it with great rapture. He was fascinated because the more he studied the bees, the more he began to understand how they were talking to each other. But the more he realized there was so much more to know. The beginning of wisdom, young people, is knowing you've got a lot to learn. Give me a hand for that, that you've got a lot to learn and you never stop learning. There's the message. So be inspired by your story. Savor this moment and reflect on your values, and then continue to think about how you will be learning over and over and over. Keep asking good questions. It makes all the difference in the world. You know, amazingly, several years ago, one of my students came to me, and he had been in Russia. He had gone to Baltimore Polytechnic, came to UMBC, had gone to Russia to study. He was fluent in Russian. Big guy, big black guy, maybe 6'6", you know, solid guy. And I said, how'd you get to be fluent in Russian? He said, I wanted to learn another culture. I said, son, what do your folks do? What do your parents do? And all of a sudden, this big, strong guy got tears in his eyes. And he said, Doc, I never wanted to tell you this. I said, what's the problem? He said, I am a ward of the state. And I thought about it. I said, son, tell me your story. He said, when I was 12, my daddy left us because he had become hooked on drugs. And by the time I was 13, my mother was hooked, and she left me in a crack house. He said, imagine the hell I went through as a child in the crack house. He said, finally a social worker got me out of there, and I went from foster home to foster home. Finally I got to a group home out on Liberty Road. I said, well, how'd you get to UMBC? He said, you know, I remembered a long time ago that my grandmama had said when I was in trouble, just say, God help me. God help me. Just say, God help me. And he said, and one of my teachers told me I was smart. And I'd never been told that before. And she said, if I wanted to get out of poverty, if I wanted a better life for myself, I had to study. I had to do what Jonathan did. I'm thinking about that. You know, the idea of dreaming and believing and working. And that's what he did. And he got to UMBC. He didn't have the money to stay on campus, so he was still living in the group home. He said, Doc, some days I didn't have food, and I learned how to get the clean part off of plates in the trash can. And by this time, he and I both are crying, thinking that one of my students had to go in a trash can to get food. He said, and some days I didn't have the money to get back to the group home, and I would just sleep and hide in the library. And I said, Tavon, who's coming to your graduation? He said, I have nobody. I said, what about that grandmama? She's hooked on drugs too. I said, so you don't see them? He said, Doc, you know what? Sometimes I will go and I will see them, but I don't let them see me, because I don't want to get pulled into it. But sometimes I just need to feel there's somebody I'm connected to. And at his graduation, all of a sudden, in the middle of this graduation with thousands of people, it was as if my deceased mama was talking to me. You know, your mama still talks to you even after she dies. She still tells you what to do. And it was as if she said, get up and say something about Tavon. And I jumped up and I said, all of you today are here with your families, because families make us who we are. But one of our own sits here alone. Let us let him know how much we care. When I called his name, his classmates, almost 2,000 of them, were shocked, because Tavon had been the one to lift everybody else up. He had never told them his story. And all of a sudden, one person got up, another person got up, and the room was filled with applause for Tavon. He cried like a baby, and he said, I never felt this kind of love. He said, I will use this day for the rest of my life. Tavon is now on a Fulbright at Princeton University. Would you give Tavon a hand? Tavon is at Princeton University. I tell you this story as I close because here you sit today, and you know behind you there's somebody who loves you. You know that when you go home, you got somebody to give you a hug and to say, baby, I'm proud of you. You know that you have been in an institution that has taught you the meaning of faith and hard work and dreaming, and so you've got a village around you saying, we believe in you. You will be just fine. If Tavon can do all that he can do with just that faith, imagine how much you can do by doing what Jonathan said, to dream, to work, to believe. And so I challenge you, class of 2011, watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Students, I tell my students, your character has everything to do with who you are, not only when people can see you, but what will you do when your mama's not there? There is your character, your character. So watch your thoughts, they become your words. Watch your words, they become your actions. Watch your actions, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. Watch your character, it becomes your destiny, dreams, and values. Congratulations to the class of 2011. All things are possible. All things are possible. Dream. Dream, young people. Dream. Congratulations.